If you want to stay up to date with all current hip hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to become part of this community. So today I wanted to talk about Brockhampton's new album, Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine, and give my thoughts on it and give this an honest review. Now, Brockhampton, to kind of put my experience with the group into context and this new album, my Brockhampton experience so far has been very positive. As I've said in multiple videos in the past, I think this is an incredible force in hip-hop, kind of one of the only, important collectives remaining after the likes of Odd Future had broken up, and that's why I always thought their place in hip-hop was very special. They've released 5 studio albums so far. This is their 6th. The first 3 were the Saturation tapes, which dropped throughout 2017, and if you haven't listened yet, that is like my favorite Brockhampton era, like Saturation 1 and 2 probably. So go listen to those if you haven't yet and you want to, start getting into Brockhampton maybe with this new album, or maybe also with the announcement from Kevin Abstract that they will drop one more album in 2021, but after that they will break up, which had a lot of fans upset, but I actually think it's the right move. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit later on as well. So listen to those. Then we had Iridescence and Ginger, and now Roadrunner, and then one more album this year. This album was announced the week before. We learned about some singles that we had on here. We had the Buzzcut single featuring Danny Brown, which I was a really big fan of. I thought it was very Brockhampton style. I liked how they interacted with the instrumental. I liked their flows on here. They had some witty bars on here. I think Danny really did his thing. The two really, Brockhampton and Danny, I've always thought that they would fit well together, and this is like the proof of that. So I thought this track was great. We also had Count on Me, which is probably, in my opinion, when I first listened to this, one of the lightest tracks on here, and really one of the kind of summer vibey Brockhampton type tracks, which many of their fans fell in love with over the Saturation tapes. So that's kind of what that vibe is going for, and that's also what Kevin announced that this track would be. It will be like, he said, imagine yourself in the summer with your friends with the windows down, screaming the chorus. So I really like that track too. Kind of going through the track list, we also had Chain On featuring JPEG Mafia. I thought that this was a very exciting track because, I think that collaboration, Brockhampton, JPEG Mafia, is something that worked really well, and that when I saw the track list first was something that I was definitely excited about, and it actually did deliver. The hook is kind of weird. We have these layered harmonies that sometimes pop in and out of being layered, which I thought was kind of weird, but all in all, JPEG Mafia really did his thing on here, and I really like this track. So that is another, I like this one. Now, on my first listen, just from these first couple of tracks, I thought that this album was a lot darker than their previous records, which now listening to it multiple times again, it's kind of a standard Brockhampton album in terms of tone. We have some darker tracks on here. We have some lighter tracks, some hopeful tracks on here, which is always a good mix. But when you first listen to it, you get the feeling that it's maybe a bit darker than it actually is. Now, one thing that I also found very exciting and very interesting is that we have the A$AP Mob featured on here, or at least Rocky and Ferg on Bankroll. Rocky just does the hook, and Ferg actually has at least the first third of the track, and I think both of them killed it. I like that they are showing love to Brockhampton. I like that they are kind of in that scene of that type of hip-hop, and that they're using their influence and that they're using their power to, give back to these really core hip-hop groups, which I thought is a beautiful thing. One of my favorite tracks on here is, for example, What's the Occasion. I think this is a beautiful track. It reminded me a lot of a Frank Ocean song. I also like the instruments used on here. They did some amazing things with an electric guitar on What's the Occasion, or also I think it was on The Light Part 2 and Don't Shoot Up the Party. Don't Shoot Up the Party is also a high energy track. It reminded me a lot of some 90s West Coast stuff with that synthesizer in the hook, but that's also something that Brockhampton has done in the past and something that they're pretty good at, so that was also a good track. Now, another highlight for me was When I Ball. I think this is also a beautiful song. I always think these like deep cuts on Brockhampton tracks are these kind of mellow deep cuts are always my favorites. Dear Lord is a track that we only get vocals on, and I think that they're also layered pretty well, but it felt kind of empty. But this immediately shifts back again when we get to the Light Part 2, which is kind of the outro of the album, but it is an incredible outro. I think from the instrumental used on here to the lyrics, what they're talking about with, that's just life. And the light is worth the wait and all that. It really was a fitting outro to this, and it makes me excited to hear more from them in the future, or at least from that next last album. Now, going into the feature a little bit more, we also had a feature from Charlie Wilson on here on I'll Take You On, and I thought that this was also, a kind of a big moment for Brockhampton. Now, Charlie Wilson is, of course, not someone who is incredibly like a huge heavyweight in R&B, but he's definitely someone who is recognizable, and I love that he got a placement on this new album. In general, this is the first album that Brockhampton has worked this openly with features. This is actually their first album that they have features listed on, which I think is interesting, and I don't think a lot of people talk about this enough, because Brockhampton was always a group that very much stuck to their own talent and their own rows and lines of, in terms of lineup on tracks, and this changed with this one, but I thought they used every feature on here perfectly. Also on, for example, Old News, from Danny Brown, JPEG Mafia, the ASAP Mob to Charlie Wilson. This all made sense. This all felt coherent. This all felt incredible. Sometimes I thought the production on this thing was maybe a little bit thin. I would have liked some, more exciting instrumentals. But the more I listen to it, the more I like it, and the more I think this is a perfect kind of outro, even though we're getting still one more album to Brockhampton as a group, as a hip-hop collective. And definitely Brockhampton, one of the most important forces in kind of group hip-hop right now. And it's sad to see them, fall apart, but I think this is the right moment for them to, while they're still on good terms, say, okay, we kind of did our thing, and now we can maybe move into solo careers or just leave our legacy in a good state behind. And that's why I think this is also a good move. So that's kind of my thoughts on this new Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine album. I'm not a hardcore, die-hard Brockhampton fan, but I have listened to most of the stuff they put out, starting from All American Trash, but not, all of the stuff that they did as Alive Since Forever, but with like their the past 5 years discography. I've been keeping up to date with them, and I've loved to see them evolve with every record, and this is yet another stone in that legacy and in that discography that I think is going to go down as one of their best, and I am very excited for their last album together that's still supposed to drop this year, 2021. So let's all stay hyped. Let's also look forward to maybe some solo stuff from everyone besides Kevin, and we'll kind of get through this breakup as Brockhampton fans. So yeah, let me know what you thought about this in the comments down below. Did you like it? Do you agree with me? What are your favorite tracks on here? And just let me know your general thoughts in the comments down below. If you watched this video to the end and liked it, and you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that like button, and go follow my social media and blog down in the description. It really helps me out. Until the next one, y'all have an incredible day, and y'all take care.